I jolted awake to the clanging of metal and loud voices echoing outside my window. My first thought was that the garbage truck had come too early. An annoying thing in Willow Creek, Georgia. But when I rubbed my eyes and peeked through the blinds, my heart nearly stopped. The Carter Field, the vast stretch of land behind my house, the place I'd painstakingly maintained, where my dad once grew corn and left to me, was now completely invaded. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. I couldn't believe the scene before me. White folding chairs were neatly lined up in rows, a giant Ferris wheel loomed in the distance, and a crew of workers bustled about, setting up red and white striped tents and game booths. Clearly a carnival in the making. I blinked, half convinced I was still dreaming. But no, this was real. The whine of power drills and the smell of engine oil were too distinct. I grabbed the jacket hanging near the door, bolted out through the back, and hurried over the low wooden fence. Then I saw her, Linda Grayson, the self-proclaimed queen of the local HOA, standing in the middle of the field, barking orders like she owned it. I marched straight toward her, blood rushing to my head. Linda, what the hell is going on? My voice cut through the noise of the workers like a knife. Linda turned, flashing a smug grin that made me want to punch that arrogance right off her face. "Oh Ryan, you're finally up," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness that made me sick. "We were worried you'd sleep through the whole event." "What event?" I barked. "This is my field. Why is there a carnival here?" Linda laughed loudly, waving her hand dramatically like I was some idiot. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Ryan. It's just a carnival, a wonderful community event. Remember?" I felt my eyelid twitch. "Remember? I don't remember a damn thing because no one asked me," I yelled, pointing at the Ferris wheel taking shape. A worker rolled a cart of cables past me, nearly hitting me, but Linda didn't even flinch. She sighed, a theatrical sigh, like I was a whiny kid. "Ryan, we sent out notices weeks ago. This is a community event. You should feel honored to be chosen for such an important day." I looked around, my blood pressure spiking. One guy was setting up a speaker near my fence. A truck loaded with gear was encroaching on my driveway, and a pile of trash was already building up on the grass. "I don't care what notices you sent," I roared. "I didn't agree to this. Get this mess off my field now." Linda's fake smile vanished, replaced by a harder look. "Oh Ryan, you're making this difficult," she said, her voice chilling. "Do you really want to be the only one in the neighborhood ruining a community event?" I clenched my fists. "I don't give a damn about your event. This is trespassing. You have no right." Linda raised a hand, cutting me off. "Oh, but I do," she said, her voice turning sweet again in a creepy way. "Per HOA rules, community events can use any space the board deems suitable. And guess what? We picked your field." My stomach twisted. I knew Linda and her HOA cronies had cooked up all sorts of nonsense rules over the years, but this was beyond imagination. "You can't," I started, but she interrupted. "Oh, we can," she said. "And unless you want some hefty fines, grass too tall, fence not up to code, even parking violations, I suggest you cooperate." I gritted my teeth, standing there as she turned away, barking more orders like I didn't exist. My field was now drowning in noise, trash, and Linda's arrogance. I took a deep breath trying to stay calm, but the sight in front of me only made my blood boil more. A big guy was rigging up a massive speaker right next to my wooden fence, cables strewn everywhere like a spiderweb. A truck hauling wooden crates, probably for ticket booths, backed straight into my driveway, its tires sinking into the dirt, leaving long muddy streaks on the grass. I glanced left, seeing another crew stretching a huge banner that read "Carnival Willow Creek, fun for all," as if this was actually someone's brilliant idea. But I knew better. This was Linda's farce, and she didn't give a damn that this field was mine. I stepped off the porch, my work boots sinking slightly into the soft ground churned up by the trucks. Linda was still there, about 20 yards away, yelling at a worker. No, that tent needs to be taller. We need it to stand out." I gritted my teeth, closing the distance, determined to try one more time before I lost it completely. "Linda," I shouted, my voice rising above the surrounding clamor. She turned, that smug grin still plastered on her face like a mask that never fell. "What now, Ryan?" she asked, her voice so fakely sweet, I wanted to plug my ears. "Are you going to bother me all day?" "Bother you?" I roared, pointing at the Ferris wheel now half assembled. "You're wrecking my field. I told you to get this junk out of here, now." Linda sighed, the same dramatic sigh I'd heard before, then crossed her arms, looking at me like I was a fool who didn't get it. "Ryan, I've already told you. This is a community event, approved by the HOA board. You can't stop it. Why don't you go home, make a cup of coffee, and enjoy the day like everyone else? Enjoy, I repeated, feeling my eyelid twitch again. You think I'll just sit back and watch you turn my land into a circus? I didn't agree to this, Linda. No notice, nothing. She waved me off like swatting a fly. Oh, the notice was sent, Ryan. Maybe you should check your trash. You probably threw it out by mistake. Anyway, it's too late now. The carnival's happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. I felt the heat rush to my face, my hands clenching into fists so tight, my nails dug into my palms. I looked around. Another guy had just dragged a long coil of electrical cord through the grass, uprooting patches. A food van was parked near the fence, back doors flung open, the smell of frying oil hitting my nose. And in the far corner, I saw a portable toilet, a damn portable toilet, rolled in near my driveway, right where I usually parked. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. It was a full-on assault on my peace. Linda, I said, my voice dropping low with anger. You have no right to do this. I'm calling the cops. She laughed loudly, the sound echoing across the field like a crow's caw. Go ahead, Ryan. What do you think they'll do? I've got the HOA paperwork. Everything's legit. You're just wasting your time. I stormed back into the house, slamming the door, my head still spinning from the chaos outside the field. The speakers and engines from Linda's crew kept blaring through the window, making it impossible to think straight. I needed a plan. Something smart, fast, and strong enough to turn that damn carnival to dust. But first, I needed to cool off. Then I heard a knock at the door, soft, but enough to snap me out of my rage. I opened it, and saw Clara Hensley, the older neighbor 2 houses down. Clara was one of the few decent folks in Willow Creek. She'd been close with my mom, and I'd always trusted her. She stood there, hands on hips, eyes narrowed at the field. Ryan, I've been hearing this racket since morning, Clara said, her voice raspy but full of irritation. What's Linda pulling on you now? She's turned my field into a carnival, I replied, my voice still bitter from the earlier fight. No asking me, nothing. She says it's an HOA community event, but I'd bet it's all her scam. Clara nodded, her lips pressed into a tight line. I'm not surprised. Linda's been running wild with that HOA for years. But you know what? She lowered her voice, glancing around like someone might overhear. I heard she's blown through the HOA's event funds, bought herself a shiny new SUV, and some fancy handbags. She picked your field because she couldn't afford a real venue, so she cooked up this excuse. My stomach twisted. Embezzling HOA money? I repeated, my voice dropping. She really dared to do that. Yeah, I got it from some folks on the board, Clara said, a mischievous glint in her eyes, but they're too scared of her to speak up. If you want to hit back, Ryan, do it. I've got your back. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite. Thanks, Clara. I'll figure something out. She patted my shoulder then headed home, leaving me with a key piece of the puzzle. Linda wasn't just arrogant. She was a crook. If I could expose this, she'd be done for. I turned back to the window, wondering what my next move was, when a small figure stepped out from the crowd of workers near the fence. He looked young, maybe not even 20, wearing a gray t-shirt smeared with grease. He glanced around, then crept toward my porch, looking awkward. Hey, you're Ryan, right? He asked, his voice a bit shaky. I'm Ethan. I work with the carnival setup crew. Yeah, that's me, I said, crossing my arms and eyeing him. What do you want? Ethan scratched his head, glancing toward Linda, who was yelling at a guy near the Ferris wheel. Look, I didn't know this was your land until this morning. They told us it was a public spot. I saw you arguing with that lady. Linda, right? I just wanted to say, I don't like this either. I narrowed my eyes, but something in his tone made me believe him. Then why don't you walk away? I asked. Ethan sighed. I need the cash. But if you're planning to stop this, I can help. I know the schedule. When it's busiest, when they're doing fireworks. Wanna know? I grinned. Yeah, I do. Spill it. Ethan nodded, promising to text me later, then slipped back into the crowd before Linda noticed. I stood there, feeling like I'd just gained another ally. With Clara's info, and Ethan's help, I was starting to see a path forward. I paced the room, my mind buzzing with ideas. Call the cops? No good. She'd prepped fake HOA papers. I bet she'd laugh in my face when they left. Dump trash on her stage. Funny, but not destructive enough. Then as I glanced outside again, my eyes landed on a corner of the field. The old drainage ditch my dad used to irrigate. It sat near the fence, overgrown with weeds, and it hit me. That ditch fed into the creek. Out back, water now full of mud, dead leaves, and a stench like sewer runoff. A slow grin spread across my face. I headed to the garage, my heart beating faster as the idea took shape. In the corner, under a pile of old tools, I found the water pump my dad left behind. A rusty hunk of metal, but I knew it still worked. I dragged it out, gave it a quick check. Wiring intact, motor humming. When I tested it, then I dug around, finding some old hoses, long enough to stretch from the ditch to the middle of the field. With the engineering skills I'd picked up, I could make this work. Not just spray water, but pump a stinking mud flood all over Linda's Carnival. I stood up, hands on hips, picturing it. Black, sludgy mud gushing up from the ground, swallowing the white chairs, collapsing tents, turning the Ferris wheel into a soggy wreck. Linda screaming, slipping in the muck, her red outfit filthy like she'd crawled through a swamp. The workers scattering, her community event becoming a laughingstock across Willow Creek. The idea was too perfect, too wicked, and I couldn't stop laughing. But I knew I had to do it right. If I turned on the pump now, while they were still setting up the carnival, Linda would have time to clean up or blame me for a broken pipe. No, I needed to wait. Wait until this carnival officially started. When the crowd rolled in, when Linda was up on stage gloating, Ethan had promised to tell me the peak moment, and I'd use it. I wanted her to think she'd won, to feel that triumph before I ripped it out of her hands. The speakers blared to life, signaling that Linda's damn carnival was officially kicking off. Just a few hours after I'd hatched my plan with the pump and drainage ditch, my field had turned into a full-blown circus. No longer a worksite, but a chaotic mess of lights, music, and strangers. The Ferris wheel was up and running now, spinning slowly with red and green flashing lights, lighting up a whole corner of the sky. Red and white striped tents were pitched everywhere, packed with game booths, ring toss, water guns, and a massive cotton candy stand. I could smell burning sugar from inside the house. The music from the speaker near my fence thumped loudly, making my windows rattle with every bass beat. I saw kids running wild across the field, trampling the grass, while adults streamed in from all over Willow Creek, laughing and chatting like this was the biggest party of the year. But to me, it was a nightmare. Linda Grayson, of course, was at the center of it all. She stood on a makeshift stage near the Ferris wheel, dressed in her garish red outfit, and that ridiculous wide-brimmed hat, holding a microphone like some washed-up pop star. "Welcome everyone, to the Willow Creek Carnival," she shouted, her fake sweet voice echoing through the speakers. "This is the greatest community event our HOA has ever put on, all to raise funds for our beloved town." The crowd clapped, some cheered, and I felt my eyelid twitch. Fundraising. I'd bet that money went straight into her shiny new SUV, just like Clara said. I set my coffee cup down, and stepped out onto the back porch for a clearer view, and the scene only made my blood boil more. A food van was parked right in my driveway, its back doors flung open, the smell of frying oil and burnt hot dogs hitting my nose. A group of teens hung out near the fence, tossing empty soda cans onto the grass without a second glance. I spotted a ticket seller under a tent, yelling to passers-by, $5 for 5 throws, test your luck. And in the far corner that damn portable toilet was now fully set up, its stench wafting over to my porch whenever the wind shifted. I gripped the porch railing tight, my nails digging into the wood until it hurt. This wasn't just trespassing anymore. It was a full-on assault on my field, on the peace I'd fought to keep for years. Linda didn't even glance toward my house, too busy preening on stage. "We've got fireworks tonight, the biggest show Willow Creek has ever seen," she declared, and the crowd cheered again. I gritted my teeth. Fireworks on my land, and no one bothered to ask me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a text from Ethan, the kid from the carnival crew I'd met earlier. "Tonight's the peak," the message read. "Fireworks start at 8, busiest then. If you're doing something, that's the time." I smirked, feeling like I'd just gotten a fresh jolt of fuel. Ethan was my ace in the hole. He knew the schedule, and I knew I'd use it. I watched a pack of kids run by, kicking gravel onto my porch. A mom yelled after them, but didn't bother apologizing as they stomped the grass near my fence to mush. Linda was still up on stage, beaming like she was the town's hero. I felt my blood boiling so hot the coffee cup in my hand shook as I gripped it. She thought she could turn my land into a circus, threaten me with petty fines and get away with it. No way in hell. I sat down on the sofa, clutching the cold coffee cup, eyes glued to the Carter field through the window, as the carnival lights flickered in the dark. The music from the speakers kept thumping, mixed with the chatter and laughter of the crowd. Linda had lured to her so-called community event. After Ethan's text, I knew my moment was tonight, 8 o'clock, when the fireworks went off, and the field was packed. But to turn this carnival into a mud pit, I needed to act now, and it had to be under the radar. I stood up, set the cup down, and headed straight to the garage. The house lights were all off. I didn't want Linda or her lackeys noticing what I was up to. In the dark, I dragged the old pump out from the corner, checking it again. The motor hummed when I tested it, and I smirked. It was still good. I grabbed some old hoses, a coil of wire, and a wrench, stuffing them into a beat-up backpack hanging on the wall. I needed to get them out to the drainage ditch in the field, but no one could see me. I opened the back door, stepped onto the porch, and held my breath as I scoped things out. Linda was still on stage, about 100 yards away, bragging about something through the mic, her voice echoing over the applause. The workers were done setting up, just a few guys lingering near the game booths. I slipped outside, crouching low, darting across the backyard in the shadow of the wooden fence. The music drowned out my footsteps, and I made it to the drainage ditch fast, a deep trench overgrown with grass near the little creek behind the field. I knelt down, flicked on the small flashlight on my phone, and checked it out. The water in the ditch was black and sludgy with mud and rotting leaves, stinking like years-old sewer runoff. Perfect. I hooked the first hose to the pump, carefully threading it into the ditch to suck up the muddy water. I did some quick math. If I ran the rest of the hoses along the fence, I could spray mud right into the middle of the field, hitting the Ferris wheel and Linda's stage. I grinned, picturing her slipping in the muck in front of the whole town, but I needed more hands. As I tightened a hose, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I whipped around, gripping the wrench, and saw Cody, the 16-year-old neighbor kid, with messy hair, who loved causing trouble around the block. He stood there, hands in his pockets, eyeing me curiously. "What are you doing out here, Uncle Ryan?" Cody asked, whispering, like he was scared of getting caught too. I squinted, then smirked, setting up a surprise for Linda's carnival. "Wanna help?" Cody's eyes lit up. "Help wreck that noisy mess? Hell yeah. I hate those guys. They spilled soda on my bike this morning." I laughed hard but hushed myself quick. "All right, can you and your buddies stir up some chaos tonight? Block the paths, toss random stuff, anything to keep Linda distracted." Cody nodded fast. "Easy, I'll grab my friends. We've got water balloons too." "When do we do it?" 8 o'clock, I said. "When the fireworks start. Don't let Linda see you came from here." "Got it. Don't worry, Uncle," Cody said, then bolted into the dark like a squirrel. I shook my head. That kid was a damn gift. I turned back to the pump, hooked up the last hose and hid it under the grass. I double-checked. The mud would blast out hard when I flipped the switch, and I'd tucked a small remote trigger in my jacket pocket to set it off from a distance. Everything was ready. I stood up, brushed off my hands, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. I stood on the back porch, hands in my pockets clutching the little remote trigger, eyes locked on the Carter field as dusk settled in. Linda Grayson's carnival had hit its peak, the damn thing glowing like a mini-city smack in the middle of Willow Creek. The Ferris wheel spun faster, red and green lights flashing across the sky, while the red and white tents were stuffed with people. The music from the speaker near my fence pounded loud, mixed with the shrieks of kids on rides and the chatter of hundreds of folks who'd shown up from all over town. The kitchen clock read 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes until the fireworks, the peak Ethan had tipped me off about. I smirked, imagining the mud flood hitting just as Linda gloated. But I had to stay cool. It had to be timed just right. Not too early, not too late. I looked out at the field, spotting Linda on the makeshift stage, her red outfit blazing under the spotlight. She held the mic, yelling something about a great night for the community, and the crowd clapped hard. I gritted my teeth. The more she strutted, the more I wanted to knock that smugness down. The field was a total mess now. Kids ran wild, stomping the grass into bare patches, while adults crowded the game booths and food stands. I saw a hot dog vendor near my driveway, grease splattering the ground, leaving shiny streaks. A pack of teens loitered by the Ferris wheel, hollering every time it sped up. Trash littered everywhere, soda cans, cotton candy wrappers, food wrappers, like no one gave a damn this was my land. I gripped the porch railing tight, nails digging into the wood until it stung. Then I caught a shouting match from a corner of the field. I squinted, and saw Hank, a big bearded vendor, yelling at Linda near the ticket booth. "You promised payment before the carnival started," Hank roared, jabbing a finger at her face. "Where's my money now?" Linda waved him off, her voice cutting through the mic still in her hand. "Hank, don't make a scene. You'll get paid after the carnival ends. This is a community event. You should feel honored." The crowd nearby started murmuring, a few heads turning, but Linda smirked and strutted back to the stage like nothing happened. I smirked too. A crack in her plan just showed itself. If Hank and the other vendors weren't paid, That HOA fund embezzlement Clara mentioned might not just be gossip. I was lost in thought when a small figure crept up near the porch. I flinched, then recognized Cody, the kid I'd roped in earlier. He stood in the fence's shadow, holding a water balloon, eyes gleaming like he'd just pulled something off. "Uncle Ryan," Cody whispered. "We're ready." Me and my buddies just chucked some water balloons near the ticket booth. "Linda's pissed, but she doesn't know it's us." I laughed loud, then hushed myself quick. "Nice work, Cody. At 8 when the fireworks go off, stir it up more. Block the paths, toss whatever. Just keep her distracted. Don't let anyone see you came from here." Cody nodded and slipped back into the crowd like a rat. I watched him go, feeling like I'd just added another arrow to my quiver. If Cody and his crew kept Linda off balance, I'd have the perfect shot to flip the switch unnoticed. I checked one last time. The crowd was packed now, jammed around the stage, waiting for fireworks. Linda was still up there, mic in hand, droning on about community spirit. I glanced at the clock, 7:55, 5 minutes left. I took a deep breath, fingers tightening on the trigger in my pocket. Everything was set, pump, hoses, mud flood, just waiting for the moment. My heart pounded, a mix of thrill and tension. I stood behind the window blinds clutching the remote trigger, eyes fixed on the Carter field as the clock hit 8. Linda Grayson's Carnival was at its height, the Ferris wheel spinning bright under red and green lights, tents stuffed with people, and music from the speakers thumping loud amid the crowd's cheers. Linda stood on stage yelling something about a night to remember. They clapped, some whistled, and my heart pounded, not from nerves but from excitement. I peeked out one last time, spotting Cody and his crew near the ticket booth. A water balloon sailed through the air, bursting near a vendor's feet, sending the nearby crowd screaming and scattering. Linda spun around, yelling into the mic, "Who's doing that?" But her voice drowned under the kids' laughter. I smirked. Cody was nailing his job, and that was my cue. I took a deep breath, thumb on the trigger. "Linda, you wanted a carnival? Here's yours," I muttered, then pressed it. A faint hiss came from the drainage ditch near the fence. No one noticed at first. Then, with a loud whoosh, black, sludgy mud erupted from the ground, blasting out of the hoses I'd hidden. It shot straight into the field's center, like a stinking hell wave, and I stood there, watching the best damn scene of my life unfold. The white folding chairs near the stage were the first to get knocked over, mud splashing onto the nearest people, making them scream in horror. A lady in a floral dress jumped up, her skirt soaked with mud, flailing her arms like she'd just been doused in sewage. The mud kept spraying, surging through the tents, collapsing several canvas roofs to the ground amid the crowd's shrieks. A ring toss booth near the Ferris wheel got swallowed up, mud splattering all over the plastic balls, sending the vendor running. I laughed loud, unable to hold it back, watching the muck coat the Carnival Willow Creek banner into a slimy mess. Then came the Ferris wheel. Mud blasted hard into its base, making it creak and groan before stopping dead, its blinking lights going dark as the power shorted out. The people up top screamed, a few kids bawling, while the operator ran around in circles, clueless. I looked over at the stage. Linda was still there, but the smile on her face vanished as a jet of mud hit her legs. She slipped, crashing onto the wooden floor, the mic flying from her hand and letting out a piercing squeal. Her bright red outfit was now caked in black mud, her wide-brimmed hat smeared like she'd waded through a swamp. I laughed even harder, banging my hand on the window frame. Chaos erupted. The crowd scattered, trampling each other to escape the mud flooding across the field. A guy near the hot dog stand slipped, dragging his food tray down with him, sausages flying everywhere, and mixing into the muck. A mom yelled for her kid, but the little boy just giggled, hopping around in the mud like it was a game. I spotted Cody near the fence, chucking another water balloon into the crowd, making things even messier. "Good job, kid," I muttered, feeling like I'd found a chaos genius. Then I heard Linda's scream cut through the noise. She'd gotten back up, stumbling on the stage, pointing wildly. "Who did this? Who dared ruin my carnival?" Her voice was shrill, almost breaking, but no one cared. Most of the crowd had bolted, leaving the field swamped in mud, trash, and collapsed tents. I stepped out onto the back porch, arms crossed, staring right at Linda as she turned. Her eyes locked onto mine, her face red with fury and panic. "Ryan," Linda shouted, sliding off the stage, her high heels sinking deep into the mud. She charged toward me, tripping again, but still pushing forward. "You did this, didn't you?" I shrugged, the grin on my face plain as day. "I don't know what you're talking about, Linda. Looks like the drainage ditch just broke. You should have picked somewhere else for this carnival instead of trespassing on someone's land." Linda stood there, hands shaking with rage, mud dripping from her hair onto her face. "You ruined everything!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "You'll pay for this." "Will I?" I replied, voice calm. "Because last I checked you had no right to turn my field into this circus. Maybe you should worry about something else, like that HOA fund you burned through." Linda's face went pale, but she didn't get a chance to snap back. The remaining crowd started murmuring, a few pulling out phones to record, and I knew this carnival wasn't just a disaster. It'd be Linda's public nightmare. Linda staggered through the muddy mess in the middle of the Carter field. Her grand carnival was now just a chaotic wreck. Black mud flowing everywhere, swallowing tents, folding chairs, and the Ferris wheel, now still like a dead heap of metal. The crowd had mostly cleared out, only a few stragglers left, phones held high filming the pathetic scene. Linda yelled at me from a distance, her voice breaking with anger, but I just shrugged, savoring every second of this victory. She slipped again, her high heels sinking into the mud, but kept lunging toward me, her trembling hand pointing right at my face. "Ryan, you won't get away with this," she roared, mud dripping from her hair onto her face, smearing her thick makeup. Her bright red outfit now looked like it had been dragged through a swamp, and her wide-brimmed hat was lost somewhere in the muck. "Get away with what?" I said, my voice as casual as if we were chatting about the weather. "I'm just standing here, Linda. Seems like you picked the wrong spot for your carnival. Who knew the drainage ditch would break at a time like this?" Linda gritted her teeth, her face flushed red then pale, but before she could yell more, another voice cut through from the lingering crowd. "Linda Grayson, how do you explain this?" It was Clara Hensley, my older neighbor, stepping out from the shadows near the fence, hands on hips. The people nearby turned, a few phones swinging toward her and Linda. Linda flinched, spinning toward Clara, forcing a fake smile. "Clara, this is just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding about what?" Clara interrupted, her voice sharp as a blade. "I heard you blew through the HOA fund on a new car and fancy stuff. This carnival was supposed to have a proper venue, but you couldn't rent one because you're broke, right? So you forced Ryan's field into this mess." The crowd buzzed louder, some shouting, "What? Embezzlement?" I smirked, feeling like I was watching a play better than the mud flood. Linda stood there, mouth opening and closing, hands shaking like she didn't know what to say. "Clara, you're making this up," she yelled, but her confidence was gone. Then Hank, the burly bearded vendor, stomped over from the wrecked ticket booth, his sleeves soaked in mud. "Making it up? Then why haven't you paid me or the others?" Hank bellowed, jabbing a finger at Linda. "You promised cash before the carnival, but now what? My gear's trashed, and I haven't seen a dime." Linda turned to Hank, trying to keep her cool. "Hank, I said you'd get paid after." "After what?" Hank cut her off, his voice booming across the field. "You think we're stupid? If you've got the money, where is it?" The crowd started jeering, some whistling mockingly, and Linda backed up, eyes darting like a cornered animal. I stepped off the porch, closing in on the fence, ready to land the final blow. "Oh, I can help explain that," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I found some receipts in Linda's trash last week. New SUV, designer bags, even spa tickets. Looks like the HOA fund didn't go to the carnival. It went straight into her pockets." Linda's face went white, her eyes wide like she'd been slapped. You're lying," she screamed, but the crowd turned fully toward me, some yelling, "Show the proof." I smirked, pulling my phone from my pocket. I'd snapped pics of those receipts, just in case, and now they were the perfect weapon. Before I could raise the phone, police sirens wailed in the distance. I turned, seeing 2 patrol cars roll into the driveway near the field. Someone in the crowd must have called them. Linda spun around, panic plain on her face, but she still tried shouting, "Everyone, calm down. I'll explain. Explain to us first." A cop stepped out, his voice deep and stern. "We got a report of an unpermitted event on private land, plus suspected HOA fund fraud. Miss Grayson, we need to talk." Linda stood there, mouth opening then shutting, speechless for the first time ever. The crowd murmured, phone still rolling, and I crossed my arms, watching her crumble in front of everyone. Clara stepped up beside me, whispering, "You did good, Ryan." I nodded, eyes fixed on Linda as the cops closed in around her. Linda Grayson's grand carnival was now just a bad memory. Collapsed tents, mud-soaked chairs, and the Ferris wheel standing still like rusted junk. The crowd was gone, the police had left after grilling Linda, and a quiet settled over Willow Creek for the first time in days of chaos. Linda was still there when I left the porch last night, pale-faced and mud-covered, yelling at the cops that this was just a misunderstanding, but no one listened. Clara had done her part, exposing the HOA fund theft to the crowd, and Hank, the vendor, had poured fuel on the fire by demanding his pay on the spot. I'd thrown in those receipt photos from Linda's trash, and that was enough to break her completely. The cops took her to the station for more questions, and I knew the HOA queen's days of ruling this neighborhood were far from coming back. I walked into the yard, my work boots sinking slightly into the damp ground, looking around the field. It was a mess, grass stomped flat, mud dried into brown-black patches, and trash scattered everywhere like battle scars. But I didn't care. This was my land, and I'd taken it back from Linda's hands. I smirked, replaying her slipping in the mud, that red outfit turning into a soggy disaster. That image was worth more than anything. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, seeing a text from Clara. HOA emergency meeting this morning. They want to dissolve after Linda's mess. You should come, bring coffee. I laughed out loud, texting back, I'll bring popcorn too. After years of putting up with Linda's dumb rules and petty fines, that damn HOA was finally crumbling. I knew the audit Clara mentioned would happen soon, and when they dug up all the cash Linda had blown, she wouldn't just lose face, she'd lose everything. I glanced back at the field, spotting Cody running over from the fence, holding a leftover water balloon from last night. Uncle Ryan, he shouted, grinning wide. Last night was awesome. Linda looked like she'd been dragged through a pile of crap. Yeah, kid, I said, clapping his shoulder. You did great. Want breakfast? I've got some pancakes in the kitchen. Cody nodded fast, darting into the house ahead of me. I shook my head, feeling like I'd adopted a little troublemaker. But I didn't mind. He'd helped me turn that carnival into a disaster, and I owed him a solid breakfast. As I stepped inside, the doorbell rang. I opened it, and saw Ethan, the carnival crew kid, standing there, hands in pockets, looking a bit shy. Hey Ryan, he said, scratching his head. Just wanted to check if you're okay. Last night, it was wild. Better than ever, I replied, smirking. You? Linda didn't drag you into any trouble, did she? Ethan snorted. Nah. I quit as soon as the mud started flying. I didn't want any part of that mess anymore. But, thanks. Without you I'd probably still be working for people like her. Don't thank me, I said, patting his shoulder. You tipped me off about the peak time. That's plenty. Want pancakes? Cody's in there eating. Ethan nodded, stepped inside, and I shut the door. I glanced out the window once more, seeing the field quiet under the sunlight. Linda was gone. Word was she left the station at midnight, then locked herself in her house, avoiding everyone. Clara texted again that some HOA board folks saw her loading up her car this morning, like she was planning to skip town before the audit hit. I shrugged. Linda could run, but she couldn't hide forever. With the mess she'd left behind, I'd bet the cops would nab her soon. I decided to cap this victory with one last move. That afternoon, I invited Clara, Ethan, and Cody over for a little barbecue, right on the field. I set up an old folding table, grilled some meat, and turned on a small speaker. Not loud like Linda's, just enough for us to laugh and joke. Clara recounted Linda yelling at the cops. Ethan added how the workers bolted, and Cody bragged about his epic water balloon. I sat there, sipping a beer, looking around the field, still muddy, but mine again. As the sun set, I stood up, peering across the road at Linda's house. The windows were dark, not a soul in sight. I heard rumors the bank might seize it if she couldn't pay her debts, a fitting end for the HOA queen. I turned back to the table, raising my beer. To the Carter field, I said, and everyone laughed, clinking drinks with me. After days of dealing with Linda and that damn HOA, I was finally free. My field might need a few weeks to clean up, but I didn't care. I'd won, and Linda had lost. Peace was back at last, at least until the next Willow Creek trouble popped up. The story HOA Karen parked a carnival in my field, so I buried it in mud piles, reflects a very real slice of life in the US today. The tension between individual rights and collective power, especially in neighborhoods with homeowners associations. In the story, Ryan Carter faced off against Linda Grayson, a character who embodies the type that abuses authority in community organizations for personal gain, like how she embezzled HOA funds for an SUV and handbags, then forced a carnival onto my field without permission. This mirrors a reality in America, where HOAs sometimes impose harsh rules or misuse funds opaquely, frustrating residents. My retaliation with the mud flood to wreck the festival, backed by Clara, Ethan, and Cody, shows the power of unity and personal ingenuity against injustice. The lesson here isn't just don't let anyone bully you. It's a practical way to handle modern American life. When Linda threatened me with bogus fines, I didn't just push back. I dug up evidence, receipts from her trash, and leaned on allies. Clara spilling the truth, Ethan giving me timing, Cody causing chaos. It's a reminder that in a US society, where individual rights are prized but vulnerable, you've got to know your rights, gather info, and build a support network. Don't just sit there taking it. Act smart like I did with that old pump, turning a disadvantage into a win. Finally, as Linda crashed and I threw a barbecue to celebrate, the story drives home that defending your space, be it a field or your personal life, is worth the fight, as long as you play by the rules, and don't let someone else's arrogance steamroll you. If you enjoyed how I turned my field into a mud pile to teach Linda a lesson, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next hilarious showdown. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video, where I'll share more wild ways to reclaim peace from those smug HOA types.